morning, everyone. I am Annie Puffett. I am the Director of Career Development here at Upper Iowa University, and we are super excited to be kicking off the fall semester of the Alumni Speaker Series, and we are joined by Anna Winter. So Anna, welcome. Anna is a 2020 alum who was a triple major in chemistry, mathematics, and biology here on the Fayette campus. So we're just going to go ahead and kick it off. Anna, I know there's a lot of things that you want to talk about tonight, and I'm sure we have lots of people that want to ask some questions in addition to the ones that you've got going on. So we're just going to kick it off, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Annie. And I'm super excited to be here tonight. I'm currently a PhD student at UC Berkeley studying atmospheric chemistry. So as part of grad school, I get to do research and teach and take my own classes and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm out in California right now. But at UIU, I was a student athlete on the volleyball team and absolutely loved my time in Fayette. Coming into undergrad, I knew I really liked science. I knew I liked a lot of different parts of science, but I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I came in with a chemistry and math major, and then I took one biology class and liked it so much that I decided to add a biology major. So I had super broad science interests, and then I was able to participate in a number of different internships that really helped me narrow down what I wanted to study in grad school. So now I'm in grad school. I get to use skills from each of those three majors every day here, and I also get to use skills from being a college athlete, which has been super cool.
Yes, awesome. So many things that you can collaborate on and kind of work together with the different educational paths and athletics that you have taken. So right now, I want to just ask, what made you choose Upper Iowa?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I think two main things really drew me to Upper Iowa. And the first one was the community feel that I experienced when I was on campus. So I remember on my visit day, everyone went out of their way to say hi to me when I was on campus. I could tell that the faculty and the students all really supported each other and cheered for each other's successes, which is something that you definitely don't find everywhere. So I loved how it felt like a big family on campus. So that was a really big part that drew me to UIU. Another thing that I was looking for in a school was that I knew I wanted to focus on both academics and athletics, because those are two big parts of my life that I really love. And so I wanted to be in an environment where I could do both school and sports. And Upper Iowa really lets students thrive both academically and athletically at the same time. The classes and the professors are all super accommodating for student athletes. And whenever you have to miss class for a sporting event or something like that, you have all the resources that you need to make up whatever you missed. So that was another big thing that I was looking for in Upper Iowa, was a great fit for that. So both the community feel and the smallness of the campus was something that really drew me, and the fact that I could do both school and sports at the same time and really focus on both of those.
Absolutely. Very different environments from being in Upper Iowa to now being at UC Berkeley. What are a few of the benefits you took away from Upper Iowa being a smaller school, and how did that help you transition to Berkeley and the opportunities that you have already had because of that?
Yeah. Oh, so being at a small school has a lot of benefits that I'm now realizing now that I'm at a really big university. So one of the things that you get at a small school is personalized instruction. So most of my classes at UIU had 10 students or less. And so whenever I had a question in class, I was able to ask it directly to the professor, which was awesome. And now I kind of contrast that with what I'm doing right now. So I'm the head TA for general chemistry at Berkeley, and we have over 1,500 students in the class, which is a really huge number of students. So there's no way I can get to know all the students. I only know the students that come to my office hours, and the professors know 0 of the students. So that was a big contrast for me, for my experience at UIU, where I really got to know my professors and my professors really got to know me. And that was super, super helpful for me as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after undergrad. So not very many people that I knew were pursuing a PhD, but all my professors have PhDs, and they all been through the grad school experience. And so they were able to give me advice on how to apply to grad school. They wrote me awesome letters of recommendation. And then after I'd been accepted, they were able to meet with me and kind of talk through which program might be the best fit, which I really, really appreciated. And I still keep in touch with a bunch of professors at UIU. So small class sizes, your relationship with the professors. Another thing is that you're able to really personalize your experience at a smaller school. So my advisor and my professors were able to work with me to fit 3 majors into my schedule, which is something that I definitely couldn't do at a larger school. Dr. Scrady let me take a final exam a couple weeks early so I could go do a Spanish immersion program in Spain during the summer, which is also something that would definitely not happen at a larger school. And so I was able to really get what I wanted out of my education because of the small size and the ability to kind of personalize what I wanted. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on for benefits of a small school is it's really easy to get involved in clubs and organizations at a smaller university because you tend to know a lot of the people on campus. Everyone's involved in different clubs and orgs, and so you can talk to your friends and see what they're involved in. It's easy to get involved with different organizations. So all those things are really cool benefits of a small school, and it's definitely become apparent to me as I've transitioned to Berkeley, where there's so many students, and you definitely don't get those benefits of a small school.
Absolutely. We did have, I'm going to switch our questions around here a little bit because we did have an individual that said, we would love to hear how the NASA internships impacted your career choice. So I'm going to flip to one of the next questions that I had, which is geared towards internships. And while you were a student and even after you graduated, you took advantage of several internships, many of them being with NASA.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of internships and how those experiences were a stepping stone for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think internships are a great way to get real world experience and figure out whether or not you like a career path. And so for me, they were really helpful just because I had such broad interests in science and I didn't really know what I wanted to study without doing these internships. So I was able to participate in a number of super cool internships while I was in undergrad, and then I did a couple after undergrad as well. So the first internship I did wasn't with NASA. It was called a research experience for undergrads. So during my sophomore year, several of my professors suggested applying to research experiences because PhD programs in science are pretty research intensive rather than class heavy. And so it's a good idea to have some research experience going into grad school to see whether or not you like it. So I applied to those. I was accepted to one at the University of Louisiana. And so I went down there for the summer and did some research looking at heavy metal uptake in aquatic organisms. And I really liked the research side of things, being able to figure out new things about the world that no one's ever known before. I thought that was really cool, but I wanted to research a different area than water quality. And so the next year, Dr. B and Dr. Olson both sent me the application for the NASA Student Airborne Research Program. And so this was my kind of first experience with NASA. And I was like, oh, it's NASA. There's no way I'm going to get accepted, but I'll just throw my name in there and see what happens. So I applied, and then a couple months later, I got a phone call that I had been accepted to the program and was excited about that. So for that program, I got to live in Southern California for the summer, and we did air quality research flights on the NASA Airborne Flying Laboratory. So NASA owns a couple of really big planes, and they take out all the seats and just put science instruments inside the plane that kind of stick out the window. And we did air quality research flights over Southern California, taking air samples above different points of interest and then doing data analysis on that. So it was a lot of like field and lab work and then some coding work, and it was really teamwork intensive, which I absolutely loved. So after that program, the Student Airborne Research Program with NASA, I was thinking that atmospheric chemistry could be something that I wanted to pursue in grad school. So that was kind of like a turning point in my career trajectory. And I did several more internships after that. So I did an internship at the University of California, San Diego, looking at some environmental justice air quality research for summer, which was, I picked up some good coding skills. And then during COVID, I did 2 remote internships with a program called NASA Develop. So this is working, NASA runs a bunch of different satellites that orbit the Earth, and these are collecting data all the time. So this program works with the satellite data that NASA collects. So I did 2 different internships with them. My second one, I was the team lead. So I got to lead a team of researchers in conducting a project, and then got to lead meetings with our science advisors and collaborators, which are really good skills for grad school. So through my NASA internships, I was able to both pick up a lot of coding skills, which were extremely useful for grad school. It exposed me to atmospheric chemistry, which is what I'm studying now, and I didn't have exposure previous to that. And then another cool thing about internships is it really lets you connect, like build those connections professionally. So in grad school, for science grad school, you generally apply to work with advisors. And all the advisors that I applied to work with knew the people that I had worked with at NASA, and the NASA people were able to write me letters of recommendation. So that connection was super helpful in deciding where I want to go to grad school. So you gain real world experience with your internships, and you also gain some pretty awesome connections.
Dr. B would like to know if you have published anything yet.
Oh, yes, we have. One of my NASA developed projects was just published, and then currently working on a paper. Hopefully we'll get it submitted by the end of this semester. Working on it.
Awesome. Congratulations. And
Thank
that
you.
is just another reminder with that question coming in that if you have any questions on the Facebook Live for Anna, feel free to drop them in there, and I'm doing my best to make sure that I get to all of them. We have several comments in there right now, so trying to keep track of who is asking a question. So
Awesome.
I think that's a nice segue into a question that I'm going to go back to. And
Perfect.
that is, can you talk about what a day in the life is like of being a PhD student?
Yeah, so PhD student life is really kind of varied. It depends on the semester. But one thing that I do year round is research. So I'm in an atmospheric chemistry lab. I'm in the Cohen group at UC Berkeley, and I study urban air quality. So I help run a network of low-cost air quality sensors in the Bay, and I get to build the sensors and deploy them out in the field and then go do maintenance on them. But a lot of my time is spent doing data analysis on the data that we get back from the sensors. So I do a lot of coding in Python, which is the coding language. So that's the research side of things. I do that both during the semester and then during the summer. I also teach. So that looks like holding review sessions for students. I have a bunch of office hours during the week. I write quizzes and exams and then grade them. And now I'm a head TA, so I supervise 16 other different TAs for general chemistry. So that takes up a chunk of time, and I've loved doing that as part of grad school. So research, teach, and then I also have my own classes some semesters. So I'm kind of wrapping up my coursework and have passed my qualifying exam, but some semesters I will have my own classes. And then I'm also involved in a lot of different mentoring and volunteer programs through Berkeley. So that's what I do in school. Outside of school, I'm a little bit different than other PhD students because I do a lot of sports and a lot of hiking, which is awesome in California. So that's what my life looks like. It's usually pretty hectic and pretty busy.
I can imagine. Another question that just came in is from Patty Christensen, and she said, what is it like when you are teaching now? What have you learned trying to teach people who might not love chemistry the way that you do?
Oh, yeah. So it's a little bit challenging. So Berkeley has general chemistry for chemistry majors, and I'm teaching the general chemistry for non-chemistry majors. So it's a little bit hard when it's just a requirement and they don't necessarily really want to be there. But I found that if you can explain the concepts clearly, generally students like to learn. So just being able to explain the concepts clearly and try to connect with the student, I think that really helps.
Absolutely. Dr. Scrady would like to know how you manage to balance all of the amazing things that you do.
how I managed to balance all. Dr. Scrady, I could say the same thing about you because but I guess I learned really good time management through college athletics. So, balancing 3 majors and like being on a nationally ranked volleyball team, that really helps me. I don't really watch TV or movies, so that gives me a little bit more time. But generally, I just function better when I'm busy. So I like to keep a pretty full schedule.
That really rolls right into the next question that I have here. You were very involved at Upper Iowa. Can you talk about some of the ways you were involved and the lessons that you learned through those experiences?
Yeah, for sure. So I think sometimes it's really easy to just be totally focused on yourself. And for me, it always puts things in perspective when I'm able to volunteer and give back and spend time, helping other people. So at UIU, I was involved in a couple different clubs. So I was part of the Athlete Peer Educator Program. I was part of the Enactus Service Club, and I was also a tutor at the Tutor Center. So I really liked that volunteering and outreach that I started doing at Upper Iowa, and I've kind of continued that at Berkeley. So here I'm part of the Bay Area Scientists in Schools. So I go into local elementary schools and teach lessons to kindergartners, which is super fun. I'm a scientist it's called Be a Scientist program, and I help lead a group of middle schoolers and making their own science experiment and carrying that out, which has been super fun. I'm on the Chem Mentor Leadership Board, so I help facilitate mentoring for first-year chemistry grad students. I'm a mentor for the Cal Teach program, and I mentor local high school chemistry teachers, and then I also mentor undergrads here at Berkeley and how to use our data, which that mentoring was definitely something that was started at UIU. So all those different experiences have helped me learn how to work with a bunch of different types of people. It's helped me learn how to communicate clearly. And one thing that I was really thankful for during my time at UIU was my time as a tutor in the Tutor Center. So during your first year of grad school at Berkeley, they throw you into teaching without any training. And so I was really able to use those lessons that I learned as a tutor, like being able to work one-on-one with students, being able to lead a group review, how to explain concepts clearly. And those lessons really carried over as I've continued to teach here at Berkeley. Yeah, and I find it really rewarding to give back. So I try to do that as much as my schedule allows.
Absolutely. As a student athlete, you've mentioned being a student athlete here on the volleyball team. What are some ways that you were able to market your student athlete experience?
Oh, yes, this is a great question. So UIU really lets you focus both on academics and athletics, as I talked about before. So a lot of people at UIU are student athletes, but when you think about the general population, only a small percentage of the population is or has been a college athlete. And so being able to talk about that and market that for yourself as you think about the next step in your career, or if you want to go to more school after undergrad, is really important. So for myself, when I was applying to these top chemistry grad schools, people who apply to these programs are all top of their class. They all excel in school. So that's not going to set me apart from the other applicants. What is going to set me apart are the things that I do outside of school. And there are so many lessons that you learn through college athletics that translate pretty seamlessly to basically any career that you go into. So thinking about, you learn the daily pursuit of excellence. You think about, how to best utilize the strengths of different people on your team for the good of the team. Definitely learn time management, trying to balance your practice and lifting and all those things with school. Communication and leadership skills. These are all things that you learn through college athletics and you can talk about through the lens of being a college athlete, and then connect that to whatever you decide to do next. So connect it to like grad school, what you're going to be doing in grad school, or whatever job you're interviewing for. So for me, I brought up being a student athlete in all of my grad school interviews, and I was accepted to all the programs I applied to, including, multiple Ivy League schools. And I think being a student athlete really played a role in that, which is really cool for me and for other student athletes, because as a student athlete, you devote a lot of your time to your sport, and it's cool to be able to see the benefits of that kind of carry forward.
Absolutely. That is one of the things that when I work with student athletes in my office, it's how are you able to market those athletic
Yeah,
experiences and those transferable skills that you have as a student
totally.
athlete. So that's great. Our paths sometimes don't always aren't always what we originally set out to do. And you found that very clear. You said yes to life's path that turned out a little differently than what you originally set out to do after
Yes.
Upper Iowa. Can you talk about how you navigated the whole process while still being able to keep an open mind? I know you graduated in 2020 during the height of the COVID pandemic. So how did that kind of change your mindset in your process?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so this is something that I've kind of experienced and then that I've seen with as I've been working with high school and middle schoolers, is that there's this increasing pressure in our society to have your whole life plan mapped out and to specialize at a younger age. And I want to be an example that you definitely do not have to do that. Saying yes to different opportunities that come up along the way can lead you down a totally different path than what you thought you're going to be on. So I didn't come into UIU planning to triple major or work with NASA or go on to get a PhD at Berkeley, but there are opportunities that came up along the way that I wasn't expecting that helped lead me there. So for example, I was able to do a couple different remote internships during COVID that I wasn't planning on doing, but COVID shut everything down. And so that's what ended up happening. And I gained some really useful skills for grad school for that. Sometimes it's hard when you're at a branching point in your life. It's hard to know what's the right decision. And for me, I'm a big believer in that you can't really make a wrong decision when it comes to that. You just make a decision and go with it. So I was having a really hard time deciding where to go to grad school because there were so many good options. And I think I would have ended up happy wherever I decided to go, but I made a decision to go to Berkeley, and I'm loving it. So I'm super glad I made that decision, but I don't think I could have made a wrong decision there. And I, yeah, also want to be an example that you can pursue all of your different passions and that you don't have to specialize in just one thing. So you can strive to be an outstanding athlete, an outstanding student, to give back to your community, and that all these different things combined can lead you to more opportunities than would have been available if you just decided to focus on one thing in your path.
Absolutely. And we just had a guest join in on our Zoom conversation. Dr. Duffy is joining us now. Apologize for the miscommunication, Dr. Duffy, in getting that link over to you. Happy that you are able to hop on and listen to Anna talk. Is there anything that you would like to talk about real quick before we turn it back over to Anna?
So Anna, I know I'd love Anna. Sharon and I've been watching with Sharon. But Anna, you know how much we love you and how proud we are of you. And I know that our faculty and the staff that worked with you, you're just amazing. We couldn't be so, we're so
Thank
proud.
you so
We're
much.
so very proud of you. And anytime you come back to campus, we'd love to have you there. So keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing great things. I watched you when you were doing, I guess you were doing the swim. That's tough to do.
Yeah, I just did a swim and then did a little half Ironman this past weekend, which is fun.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep it up. You're doing great physically, you're doing great mentally, and just making things happen. So I'm interested to hear how things are going. So let everybody ask questions, and very proud of you though. And
Thanks, Dr. Duffy.
anytime you come back, we'd love to have you. Okay.
Oh, awesome. And I'll for sure be back. My sister's on the volleyball team now. So I'm going to be back to watch some games.
That's right. And I asked that question to somebody and they said it wasn't your sister. And I said, okay, well,
Yep.
That's great. Very good then. Awesome.
Yeah, so she's
All
there.
right.
So I'll for sure be back in Fayette probably sometime this year.
Well, we'll see you then. Okay.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Okay.
Making connections and relationship building is so important in helping with the advancement in our fields. Can you talk about what you say would be your biggest piece of advice to building those relationships? And it could be what you've learned here at Upper Iowa or what you're continuing to learn over in UC Berkeley.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, relationships are totally a big part in advancing your career. And one thing I've tried to do in internship settings is really cultivate those relationships with my fellow interns and mentors while I'm in that setting. And the way that I really like to do this is you cultivate those relationships while you're in the work setting, but I also really like to build those relationships outside of the work setting. So when I was doing internships, I would do weekend adventures with my fellow interns and mentors, and that really helped build a relationship that was strong both because of work and because of the things that we did outside of work. So not being afraid to continue to build those relationships outside of work, I think, is one piece of advice. And then another piece of advice for building relationships is not being afraid to reach out to people and just email them or give them a call. I used to be really nervous talking to people that were significantly higher up than I am, and now I think it's a super cool thing to do. I found that most people are generally willing to talk to you and give you their advice and their life advice. So that's another piece of advice I would give, is to not be afraid to reach out to people, even if they're in a higher position than you are at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think that goes for any position, organization, anything that you are in, continuing to make those connections with everyone within your organization. So that's great. We've talked a little bit before, Anna, about career readiness and kind of the competencies that are instilled within each of us, a lot of those transferable skills. It's a pretty important topic in career services and then higher education in general. The university and my office specifically belongs to NACE. It's the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And they have developed a core group of those core competencies that employers are looking for. What do you feel are the most important competencies to help with an individual's career readiness, and why?
Ooh, yeah. So NACE has a list of a bunch of different skills that are all very relevant to career advancement, but 3 of them that I would highlight are teamwork, inclusion, and leadership. So I think teamwork is really important because you can always accomplish more as a team than you can by yourself. And inclusion kind of goes along with that. So people tend to perform better when they feel like they belong and feel like they're a valued member of the team. So I think teamwork and inclusion are really important and kind of go together. And then I think leadership is also really important. I've found, as I've kind of gone throughout UIU and here at Berkeley, a good recipe for success when you're on a team or working on a project is having a good leader. So I think leadership, teamwork, and inclusion are all great skills to kind of develop as you think about advancing your career.
And then to piggyback off of that, how would you encourage others to improve upon those skills and competencies?
Yeah, so I think for myself, teamwork and inclusion, I've really been able to build upon those skills by meeting and getting to know and work with people from a variety of different backgrounds. So I think sometimes it's really easy to surround ourselves with people that are the same as us because that's what's comfortable to us. But I found I've learned the most when I work with people that have a much different background from myself. So they're able to teach me, I'm able to teach them. It really helps with my communication skills. And I feel like that's really helped me be able to develop some strong teamwork and inclusion skills. It's really cool at Berkeley because there's people from so many different backgrounds and all over the world that come here. So that's been really, really cool at Berkeley to get to meet people from all over the world. So that's teamwork and inclusion. For improving leadership skills, the advice that I have is to not be afraid to accept leadership positions. So it's really uncomfortable leading at first when you haven't done it before, but you get more and more comfortable as you continue to do it. So I used to be really, really shy and didn't like leading. And now I'm leading groups at NASA. I'm in charge of 16 TAs at Berkeley, and I've gotten super comfortable leading a group. So it definitely comes with practice and just not being afraid to put yourself in leadership roles, even though it might be uncomfortable at first. Really helps with those skills.
Are there any final pieces of advice that you have for current students, other alums, other individuals of the chemistry, bio, or mathematics here at Upper Iowa? Any pieces of advice that you have for anybody maybe wanting to get into NASA? So what can you tell us?
Oh yeah, okay. I guess a couple of different pieces of advice. Let's see. So for getting into NASA, I think just throwing your name in there and not being afraid to apply. Even if you think you might not get in, it's worth just applying. let's see, for grad school, if anybody's thinking about applying to any science grad school, I'd be happy to meet with you and give you my advice about that. But a big thing that really helped me was meeting with potential advisors before the applications were due, and then just kind of getting the feel to see if the program would be a good fit and if the advisor would be a good fit. And I'm happy to chat with anyone if they're thinking about science master's or PhD programs. But then I guess my final piece of advice to all students is to not be afraid to get outside your comfort zone and try new things, because that's where you totally grow the most. And you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you're not going to get anywhere new. And so for myself, I was really, really nervous to move to California because I had lived in the Midwest my whole life. UC Berkeley is the top chemistry grad program in the nation. And so I was also a little nervous for that, but I have grown so much as a person out here and I am having a blast out here. So I'm super glad I made that decision, even though it was uncomfortable for me at the time. So that's a lesson that I learned at UIU and that has been continuing to benefit me as I go forward.
And we had a couple more questions that came in.
Awesome.
A question from Paula Winter, who you might know, asked, what are a few top memories from UIU?
Oh, a few top, okay, I have several. Okay, one of my favorite UIU experiences was with the Inactive Service Club. We did a service trip to Nicaragua with Redmond, who was a professor at UIU and who was a local from Nicaragua. And that was really cool. We got to do like 9 or 10 days in Nicaragua leading camps and educational programs for students. And I made some really good friends through that trip. So that was awesome. And then volleyball wise, we beat the number 4 team in the country in the conference playoffs. And that was a really fun game and a highlight from UIU for sure.
And then a question that came in from VH 101 said, what are Anna's plans when she becomes Dr. Winter?
Ooh, what are Anna's plans when she becomes Dr. Winter? Anna has 3 more years till she's a doctor, but I either two different paths that I could go down. I really enjoy teaching, so potentially being a professor one day, that could be a path. I also really, really enjoyed all my internships with NASA, and they have several kind of stations out in California and a bunch of other different places. So potentially going back to NASA for research after my PhD. We shall see. Got a couple more years left.
Yeah. So Dr. B's class, his first year seminar class, and I'm going to open this up to any type of a class, but his first year seminar class has an exam tomorrow. What advice do you have for them? But I'm going to throw it even further. And within your area of expertise and your major, what advice do you have for anyone that has an exam?
Anyone taking an exam? Oh, this is a good question because my students also have an exam coming up. So I would say if it's a science class, lots of practice problems before your exam really helps me. It also helps to prepare a little bit before the night before, so not just cramming it all in one night, which I know I often do. I often just cram the night before, but that's not when I learn the best. So maybe starting to prep a couple days out from the exam. Then when I'm taking the exam, I do all the problems I know first and skip the ones that I might get stuck on, just so I get all the ones I feel good about done first, and then I can come back and spend whatever time I have left on the hard problems. That's my exam advice generally for science exams. That's how I approach it.
All right. So unless there are any other questions that are coming in for Anna this evening, it doesn't look like we have any. So I think we're going to close things out for the evening. Anna, I want to thank you so much for hopping on to our September talk with the Alumni Speaker Series. It's great to be able to connect with you, hear some information on what it is that you're doing within your PhD, and out there in California. And enjoyed talking with you. I know that the students and UIU community learned a lot from you this evening. So again, if there's anyone that has any additional questions for Anna, you can definitely reach out to me in the Office of Career Development and I can get you connected with her and you guys can continue that conversation and that mentorship a little bit further down the road. So again, thank you guys for hopping on tonight and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Annie.